A number of spiritual teachings point to embodiment or going in your body or listening to your body, right? Now, how I see it is that the body is like a symbolism of fullness, yesness. It's something that is fleshed out, you know? It's something that is in yes. It's visible. It's here in quote unquote flesh and blood. It's solid, sturdy, relative to thoughts and emotions, right? And so, quote unquote, going into the body brings about some kind of sense of stabilization, some kind of sense of groundedness or grounding. There's that sense of, fleshed out from notness, you can say, not fleshed outness to something that is here, that is in solidity, that's in appearance, you can say. And so that direction leads you from notness, you could say, to yesness, fullness, fleshed outness. It's sort of putting it under the spotlight or giving the stage to it, stepping back and allowing this fullness to be at the stage, you could say, to come into view, to be the one at the forefront or to be pedestaled, you could say. And in so doing, we allow ourselves to be here. We allow the presence of this because the body is here, right? Whatever the mind thinks, whether it thinks, I don't deserve to exist, I don't deserve to be like this, I don't deserve to be here, blah, blah, blah. The body doesn't care. The body remains. The body is still as is, right? Still here, still in appearance, still in fleshed outness, still in yesness, you can say. And so going to the body is like stepping back, like those kinds of knotless thoughts. Step back and give way to presence, give way to yesness, because the body is already doing it. The body is already, quote unquote, unapologetically existing. Whatever the mind thinks, the body is here, is taking up space. It's here in physical reality. You can say it's like a humbling down of the notness thoughts to sort of be in reverence for what is in yesness, what is in fleshed outness, what has no problem with being here, being in fullness, being in wholeness. Because based on our conditioning, right, we are taught to give way, especially for women, right? We are taught to make ourselves small, to give way, to just give in, to shrink ourselves, to not take up space, right? To just cater to others. And in some country or practices or religion, the men even force women to cover themselves from head to toe, right? And so there's that kind of conditioning. Now, the shift then is going from that, like a covering of your presence or yourself to stripping it back, right? Stepping back and allow the truth of you, the fullness of you to be, to be on the stage, to not cover it and shroud it, right? To not be in the way, you know, of it. That's why also in a lot of spiritual teachings, they tell us to just get out of the way, It's not exactly about more and more doing. It's more about less, like get out of the way, stepping back and allowing. ceasing, ceasing the shrouding, ceasing the impositions of notness ideas. Let me give an example. It can be very subtle, without any visible appearance, and it all just happens internally. Like there's this one time I was in a spot selling cooked food. So it's kind of like a canteen of some sort. And I had a lot of orders, and there's someone lined up behind me, and there's only one staff. And so it was taking time because I have multiple orders. And the thought arose that I'm being a bother, I'm being a nuisance, I'm making the person behind me wait. I don't feel comfortable. I'm taking up space, I'm taking up time, and I don't deserve that. You can say I'm not supposed to do that. Again, I'm being a block or nuisance to another person that's behind me. As that was happening, it occurred to me, wait, hold on. I'm a paying customer, right? I'm an equal human being, you can say, and I deserve all the time in the world to get all my orders. I was here first in the line, and I'm now getting my orders. And it just so happens that I have multiple orders, and I deserve all the time in the world to get it. And the people in the back deal with it, you know? It's just how it is. Why am I feeling like I'm not allowed to do this when I'm not doing anything wrong? Again, I'm a paying customer. Hey, if it's taking a while, the people in the back go deal with it. That's how it is. And so that's that. And when my order was done and I went ahead, and I noticed that the next person in line wasn't actually really in a rush. He was talking very slowly, he was just chill. He doesn't show any signs of irritation or anger or whatever. He's just actually very chill and relaxed. And so all that is just happening in my mind, that the next person is rushing and I was in his way, etc. And I was having all that, internal chaos or whatever. But that person was just fine. Anyways, it just goes to show that our conditioning really arises, right? And so if these old conditionings arose, then it's up to us to respond. It's up to us to see it and kind of be on a place of rational observation. Like, wait a minute, hold on. Is this even rational? Is this conditioning serve me? Right? What is this about? And so that's one example how we can, create this sort of shrinking within ourselves. When in reality, our body is here, it's taking up full space, it's always in fullness, wholeness. And you can say what is quote unquote asked of us is to just is to just go with it, instead of contradicting it. Instead of saying to it, you're not supposed to take up space, you're not supposed to take time, you don't deserve to be served, etc. Again, so it's more of a step back and ceasing the cessation of that and just let it be, It is as it is. You're taking up space, you're taking up time, you're fleshed out. And so be it. And so for the other people, deal with it, you know? Another instance. So I was in a grocery store. This might sound very trivial for some, but anyway, the push cart that I took turned out to be so noisy. Those kinds of push carts are just really noisy when you're pushing them. And usually I change the push cart because there's a kind of sense of embarrassment that, you're being too noisy. However, at that time, when I realized that the push cart that I picked was making so much noise, I just let it be, you know? So what? So what that I'm making so much noise? So what? It's not like it's my fault. It's not like I'm doing it on purpose. It's the equipment that's beyond my control. It's the supermarket's belonging. What can I do about it? I have nothing to do with it. And so what that noisiness announces my presence, you know? So what that my presence makes noise? So what that it's not silent, you see? And yeah, that's that. You see, it's like this sort of conditioning, again, especially for us women who are brought up in such oppressive, patriarchal, misogynistic environments, you know? And you're taught to just stay silent, not speak your truth, to always give way, give in. And when things happen, just let yourself be abused, basically. And so these kinds of conditioning, arises. Now as an adult, right? You could say as a more mature adult, now you can see these things, right? And now you can respond. Now you can, again, look at it objectively and not blindly follow it or give your power away to it. It's like, wait a minute. Why am I the one feeling embarrassed about this? Or why am I the one giving way? Or why do I feel like I should shrink from this? You know, it's an opportunity for us now to not continue that cycle, you can say. And again, it can be little things like that. That in reality, I'm pretty sure no one actually really cares that much, right? Even though the push cart is being noisy. In reality, people are not, bothered by it. It's just all happening internally, you know? So, yeah. Now, the patriarchal conditioning, right? The misogynistic brainwashing, you can say, is that how women should be is that they should revolve around a dude, right? That they should spend all their lives serving and catering to the guy's every whim, the guy's every command, every, senseless, irrational, self centered tantruming. And the woman should revolve around his entitlement, right? So the presentation here is the dude is the solid rock, is the one that is in yesness. It's the one that is in solidity, fleshed outness, here-ness. And the woman should be, quote unquote, in notness, jelly, jelly spine. She should just cater to whatever entitlement that the dude is, commanding or screaming about. And so the dynamic here is that the woman takes on the step back position and she is in reverence, right? She is in allowance of the guy. Now, spiritual awakening is taking your power back, right? So essentially, it's redirecting that quote unquote, that step backness from another person to your own true self. Instead of giving way to other people, you give way, you direct that humility, you can say, you direct that allowing or giving way to your truth, your true self, your fullness, your wholeness, instead of other people. You see, we are responsible for our own fullness and wholeness. Now, those kinds of people, those kinds of men, they're a child, so they are not self-sufficient. They want others to do that for them because I can do it myself. I'm in deep misery and insecurity. So you do it for me. You resolve this for me, right? You resolve my notness for me. You're the one who should allow for me, who should give way to me. You give your power to me because I'm dependent. I'm dependent on external contrast to reflect me that I am the one in power. You lower yourself to me so that I don't have to do it myself. So I won't have to do that quote unquote humbleness or stepping back myself because you're the one who's doing it for me. Right. And obviously, it's a very toxic, abusive dynamic. Nothing comes out of that kind of relationship, but just reinforcement of immaturity, reinforcement of deep asleepness, deep unconsciousness, infantilism, and disempowerment. Now, some spiritual teachers, or as described by people who have had experiential understanding of this, they describe it as feeling like being naked, right? Like being open, being stripped, being stripped naked and being vulnerable. And I understand that description because when your norm is the veiling or the shrouding or the covering, the sort of shrouding yourself with notness ideas, when that is stripped back, then it can feel like being exposed. It can feel like being naked. It's kind of like maybe when a woman who has lived all her life covered from head to toe, and then she started finally being free from that oppressive environment and got out and started living free from that oppressive covering, then it can feel like being naked, being vulnerable, right? Now, that's just a feeling sense, you can say. It's the experiential sense of it. But in reality, the case in fact is that it's merely the stripping of what actually prevents the fullness and wholeness of your authentic self, of your true self. What comes to mind is the papaya seed. You know how papaya seeds have this kind of jelly like coating? And I believe it's called sarcotesta or aril. And when we pinch this outer layer, then the quote unquote the true seed emerges, right? The quote unquote the naked seed gets exposed. It got stripped of the aril of the seed coat. It got freed up from that. Or a snake, right? When it sheds its skin, it's like it's the stripping away of that old skin, of that old conditioning, you can say. When this first happened for me, it did feel like that. It did feel like it's like a stripping, like a snake skin. And it felt like an exposure. It did feel like that. Now I want to refer to a different analogy or dynamic, the follower guru dynamic, which I hope it's now, getting less and less. And people don't just worship random people. But the follower is in reverence, right? Is in reverence to the guru. And they put the guru on a pedestal, right? They step down and give all, I don't know, worshiping or servitude, maybe, or again, pedestaling to the guru, sometimes to their detriment, especially if it's a cult or a power hungry guru, right? And so, again, there's that tendency to to give way, to put authority out there, to abdicate our own self decision, our own self thinking, our own self critical thinking, you can say, our own self autonomy in place of this external, person. There is that tendency to release, right? To abdicate, to just surrender power over to an external entity and just be a mindless follower, you can say. It's like copping out, right? Copping out of self responsibility, of self decision and autonomy. Now, this tendency, again, it's all about redirecting. And so instead of directing it out there on an external person, on someone external, it's redirecting it to your own truth, to your own true self. You can even say to your own avatar, because the avatar knows itself, probably knows itself better than you meaning the ego, the ego mind. It knows itself better than the brainwashed, conditioned ego mind, right? And so if there is that tendency, right, to again give way, to worship, to put authority out there, you can say that it's just a misdirection, you know? And so you just kind of have to direct it at your own, again, avatar, at your own embodiment, at your own expression. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of humility. It's the same kind of stepping back and allowing, of pedestaling, of, giving stage to, right? It's just that it's directing it from out there to over here. And you are in, you can say, reverence to your own fullness, to your own yesness, wholeness, fullness, and truth, you know? That's why, again, there's the common saying, listen to your body, right? The body knows itself. It's applicable in all areas of life, in food, in situations, in places. You know how we can sense something when it's not right for us? We can even sense the general vibe of some places. Like, for example, there's this one time I was in some kind of organization, which turned out to be not good. And so I left. But anyway, there was this one time, there was a party happening in one of the rooms. That's the venue. And the minute I stepped over the threshold of the door, there's that sense of sinking. It's like something sank greatly, like an immense sinking, you know? So it was not a good vibe at all. You can say it was a very low vibe with that great sinking that I felt. Or like when you encounter someone, right, who's really, you know, it's really not good to be around. And there's the sense of nausea that arises, like like you just want to throw up, like you have a sick feeling that arises. The body knows, right? It's intelligent. That's the usual case, right? And then usually when we don't listen to our body, the mind rationalizes. The mind comes up with some rationalizations or justifications. Oh, well, they seem to be good people, or, how they present themselves seem to be good or whatever. And of course, it turns out you find out that, oh, it's really not good. Right. So the body already signaled you, right? Already gave you a sign. It's just that when that happened, when, we're not yet trusting, we still listen to the mind. You see, we still listen to the justifications of the mind. And so we get ourselves in trouble. And so yeah, that's the mechanics or dynamic that I hope I was able to point to here, is the dynamic of solid and the non-solid, right? Yesness and notness. We can also take a look at the sun, right? The sun remains, the sun is there. Even if it's nighttime, the sun is still there. When it's nighttime in where we live, it doesn't mean that the sun disappeared. It's still there. And it's the earth that revolves around the sun, right? The sun is the rock, you can say, that the earth revolves around, that the earth bends itself around, you know. And that's the thing too with what the body represents. It's always in yesness, at least in physical reality. It's grounded, right? It's solid. It doesn't matter what the mind thinks, even if the mind thinks, I don't deserve to exist. I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to take up space. But that's the thing, it's irrelevant to the body. It's too late, the mind is too late. The body is already existing. The body is already here, taking up space, whether you like it or not. Like, even if the mind turns away from the truth, the body is still in yesness, is still in fullness. It's kind of like when the earth, turns away from the sun and it's nighttime. Even though it does that, truth remains. The fact remains. The sun is there, ever shining, ever in yesness, ever whole, ever full, ever complete. Right? And so again, it's the redirecting. It's the redirecting of recognizing, the good qualities out there, right? Giving it away and redirecting that to, again, your true self. It's like each of us already has our own designated ration, ration of, let's say, good qualities, and it belongs to here, you know? It's not out there because that person also has its own ration, right? Also has its own consciousness and recognition. It's not up to us to cater to that person or to shroud ourselves or minimize ourselves in place of inflating that person or pedestaling that person, because that sort of quote unquote pedestaling is for our own avatar, you know? Don't give it away. That person doesn't need it because he has his own self. He has his own recognition. If you give this kind of servility, subservience, or catering, right, or pedestaling or adoration, let's say, at the expense of you, right, at the expense of your power and your truth, well, then you're only enabling parasitism. You're only enabling infantilism and parasitic dynamic. And so the more people who take their own power back, right, who take their own recognition back, then that's probably the time when society will change greatly. But as long as the majority's tendency is to give authority and power away, well, then the structures, the programmings remain, you know.